The Newsday continues here on One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. Political analyst Dingdong Manhit says the Marcos camp may not see the value of the former senator attending presidential forums. In an interview with One News, Manhit said that the team of presidential aspirant Bongbong Marcos do not attend forums strategically as they utilize social media for a campaign. But Manhit notes that the mainstream media should still force candidates to attend these forums to be able to engage among the public and force them to answer questions.
Mr. Marcos continues to communicate to voters through social media. And that basically undermines the role of mainstream responsible media because you have the discipline of fact-checking, editorial discipline of fact-checking. You don't simply accept what is laid down. That's why I have this major candidates. Senator Marcos is a leading candidate. Let him explain to us his plans. And maybe we can make a good choice to back him or not.
Speaking with the Chief's political science professor Julio Tihanki also said that sticking to social media is not a sure win strategy for candidates. Tihanki adds that the less talk, less mistakes campaign strategy also has its disadvantages.
Now, the Marcos camp wants to control their narrative by relying strictly on social media, where BBM can play cute with the bloggers, and influencers and spin myths about the golden era and the Taliano gold. Pero at the end of the day, again, this can also backfire, because those who live by social media can perish by social media because these same interviews can now be seen all over the world 24/7. And if you're not present in this serious conversation, then hanggang doon ka na lang sa pakyut, di ba?
Now, though candidates are going all out as early as now to boost their standing in the elections, the official campaign period has technically not yet begun. It is actually set to kick off next week. Now, starting February 8, candidates are not allowed to campaign without the permission of the COMELEC Campaign Committee for each locality. Candidates are also prohibited under COMELEC rules from giving money as a form of ayuda or holding raffles. Vice President Leni Robredo, meanwhile, has requested an exemption for the office of the Vice President's Angat Buhay program. COMELEC spokesperson James Jimenez says the COMELEC and bank has yet to decide on Vice President's request.
This has already been heard and submitted for resolution to the Commission. So we are going to wait for that resolution. Hindi pa siya available. But basically saying no resolution yet.
We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. Now, as the country's debt ratio widens due to the pandemic, what now is the government's outlook for the country's economy for the rest of the year? Finance Secretary Carlos Dominguez discusses this with Haslinda Amin on Bloomberg Markets Asia. Let's listen in.
Let's take a look at inflation. As that headline crossed earlier today, I'm just wondering, do you see at all the possibility of inflation re-emerging as a threat to the Philippine economy?
Well, there are sources of inflation last year, and we believe for the coming year are really two sources. One is food inflation, and what drove our inflation rate last year was the price of pork. We were hit by African swine fever, and actually what the government did was we opened up the imports of pork, and that mitigated the rise of prices of pork, and that's why we have a lower inflation rate for January. However, we're looking at the prices of fuel and watching it very carefully, and we are anticipating the softening of fuel prices, and I think that will be good for our inflation outlook.
Inflation continues the biggest worry for central banks around the world. The Fed getting ready for a lift-off. We saw the BOE raising rates yet again. I'm just wondering, given expectations of tighter financial conditions, can the Philippines remain or keep its loose monetary policy?
Well, at the moment, as we have announced, the Philippine government has actually reduced its debt from our central bank from 500 billion pesos to 300 billion, and that's about 5.9 billion US dollars, and we expect to pay it by the end of this year. Of course, we are watching very carefully the trends of interest rates around the world, and we do, however, are confident that we can handle some increase in interest rates since our interest rate payments as a percentage of our GDP are quite a bit lower than those of our rating peers, especially our neighbors in ASEAN.
You talked about how you are comfortable with some increase in interest rates. What might that level be?
I'm not going to predict that, but essentially, we do anticipate tightening and rate increases, and we are not that worried unless, of course, they start spiking abroad. But I think that's not likely.
Meanwhile, here are stories from around the world. Queen Elizabeth marks her 70 years on the British throne. This marks the British monarch's Platinum Jubilee, which refers to the 70th anniversary among monarchies. Queen Elizabeth will mark the Ascension Day in private as tradition, but will be celebrated over the course of 4 days in June. Russian President Vladimir Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping unveiled a global alliance taking an anti-Western tilt. Putin and Xi publicly took each other's sides in a range of disputes, notably with Ukraine, where Putin is being accused for or of preparing for war. China also backed Russia's call for NATO to halt its expansion amid the dispute with Western countries. Apple is planning to release a low-cost 5G by March 8th. According to the Bloomberg report, the upcoming iPhone SE model will feature 5G network capabilities, an improved camera, and faster processor. However, the target release may be delayed due to production issues or other changes. One Angkas rider is giving free rides to celebrate his hurdling off the criminology licensure examination. Mobile journalist Julie Baiza with the story.
It's not every day that we get something for free, but over at UP Techni Hub, a motorcycle ride won't cost a peso thanks to Angkas rider Mark Anthony. Even if passengers offer to pay, Mark respectfully declines. Why give free rides? Well, Mark is paying it forward. He just passed the 2021 criminology licensure exam.
Ang gusto ko lang po makapagbigay ng serbisyo sa ibang tao.
Before graduating, Mark works as a rider for Angkas at night and works on his studies during the day.
Pagdating po ng umaga, nagbabasa po ako ng mga files ko po, mga reviewer. Tapos pagdating po ng gabi, bumabiyahe po ako. Kaya po ako bumabiyahe ng gabi po para kumita ng pera. Saka syempre po para ma-relax po ng konti yung utak.
The viral social media post shared by a fellow Angkas rider has since garnered a lot of positive reactions from netizens. And as for Mark, sharing becomes a joy with all the blessings that has come his way. Mobile journalist Julie Baiza, we are One News.
And those are the top stories of the hour. Join us later at 1:30 in the afternoon as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on Signal Play app. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Riza Diaz. We are One News.